All right, welcome back to the Power of X podcast, joined by Jim Wilterdink, Megan Corson, and Joe Laxton. My name's Parks, and last episode we talked about changing 1 million lives. Why was personalization through testing the hill that we were willing to die on? So, uh, Jim, from your perspective, how did we get to the 1 million lives goal? And, why was that hill the hill we were willing to die on, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think as I did research and started to look over a lot of the different approaches to wellness, to weight loss,
Mhm.
to sports performance, as I mentioned previously, is what's that X factor for people? What's the difference? Why do some
Yeah.
people succeed? Why is it, so much easier for some versus others? And I think when you take, I'm referencing some research that I did a long time ago that's available on our website. But when you take a prescribed or customized approach, your success rate goes through the roof. And so that speaks volumes for individualization versus the generic approach.
Right.
And then when you start looking at how many people are projected to be obese now versus just in a few short years, 10 years from now, it's like 50%, where right now, or just a few years ago, it was, I think, 15 or 20%.
Yep.
Um, and that's scary. And so the opportunity to help people is right now.
Right. Yeah. And today, something I wanted to touch on today is DNA testing. So, wanted to talk about our DNA test through X Factor Labs and how that is a part of the biocode method. So, when you guys hear people, or when people hear about DNA testing, what do you think they usually misunderstand?
I don't know. I think that a lot of people hear that as like, it's marketing. It's ancestry.com. It's, who am I related to? And, why do I have blue eyes versus brown, et
Right.
cetera, et cetera. I think
Right.
that's traditionally what, we were taught back in school.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you guys?
Well, yeah, people don't think that that could affect their lifestyle.
Right.
It's, well, yeah, I know I have blue hair, or, blonde, blonde hair, no hair, whatever, right? Um, I think that's a lot of it was, yeah, for the longest time it was, know your history. I don't think a lot of people look at it like, well, this can also help you determine your future.
Hmm.
That's what I say. It just is actually, I just look at it now. When you look, it's not just what you inherited as far as like the past, like what Joe said with your future, like what you could do with that information
Hmm.
when it's
Yeah.
tailored to lifestyle. And so,
But
What?
yeah, people will say it's, this illness is hereditary or this
Mhm.
runs in the family. It's like, yeah, I mean, you can draw the link to, okay, this is also something that we can predict future with. If we know what we're talking about, we can make changes.
Right. Why does everything that we do start with testing instead of just jumping straight into execute, execute, execute?
Yeah, well, that's, in my business, and I talked some of it on the first one, and this is what I've talked to a lot of clients about all the time is I I would always have answers, right? And in my opinion, they were correct answers. Because, well, yeah, you just need to do this, and this, because I had biases typically towards this, that, and that, and this. And I think a lot of people have biases, especially when they've been in the coaching business, because they can kind of see what works. And, so I'm very, very guilty of having biases of what people need to do. Until you start looking at testing and you can see two people side by side with data that are polar opposites, and you either, again, you're either ignorant or naive to it, or you're just blind to it, willingly thinking, no, this is going to continue to work. But if you have to have an intellectual, honest conversation with yourself and say, there's no possible way that these people can do the exact same thing and get the exact same result when you have the data right in front of them. So that's why, at this point, I'm very big on when people ask me what they should do. Again, I'm very upfront with this. My answer is, I don't know. Yeah. Because if I give them an answer again, I am literally guessing. I am throwing my biases out there and I am guessing what that person should be doing.
Yeah. What kind of information does the DNA test actually give us, and like what does it not? What are some of the tangibles of the test?
One of the things that I think is important to recognize and be truthful about is your DNA is not going to give you necessarily do this, get that. Okay. So your DNA is your predisposition. Okay. This is how your body is designed. This is the science of it. There is something that the use of, or the application of, or the influence of is epigenetics. That is the environmental impact that helps your body express or suppress different genes. So it's important to recognize that your DNA is your DNA. It will not change. However, there are things that you do and don't do that express or suppress the different genes, so making genes stand out more. So what we're saying with a DNA test is, here's how your body is designed, and your predisposition, for example, mine, is better suited to a low-fat diet than a high-fat diet. Okay. So predisposition is something that's critical that people understand. The usefulness and application, so I'm going to cite a research, is the success rate of self-directed commercial weight loss, low carb, low fat, very low calorie. The best one, which is mathematics, is a very low calorie diet. Okay. Very low calorie beat low fat, low carb, commercial weight loss like Jenny Craig and all the others, or a self-directed plan. After 1 year of success, or after 1 year, the success rate for the very best one is low calorie. And it's only 13%.
Yeah.
Think about that. 13% success rate after 1 year. And it's based on the mathematical calorie intake. Well, that's a no-brainer, right? You eat less, you starve yourself, your body's going to burn fat. But think that's the most successful. So scrap all the other stuff and we can just talk about calorie management. Well, I think there's a better way. And the nutrigenomics, which is the genetic predisposition in application of your nutrition, after 300 days, I don't know why they didn't go 365, but after 300 days, the success rate following a nutrigenomic meal plan was 73%.
Huge difference.
Huge.
Yeah.
That should make everybody sit back and think.
Yeah. Well, that's, I did a video yesterday on just belief. And I think that's what happens is no one's going to attempt something that they don't believe is going to happen. Like, if you truly don't believe your parachute's going to open, you're probably not jumping out of the plane. You have a certain level of belief that this parachute will work. Therefore, you will take the leap and leave that plane, and that's what kind of happens with diet, where when we have data, we can increase a client's belief that this is going to work. So if they have a belief in it, they're going to get better results. And the better results they have, the more compliant that they're going to be. And that's just what data does.
Well, I think there's, Joe, 100%. I think we can back that up and influence their understanding and therefore belief by showing them scientific data. For example, supplementation. Genetic variations will impact the response to different vitamins like vitamin D, vitamin B12, omega-3s. That's a scientific research that we can show through some genetic testing how your body responds to things such as vitamin D, B12. So if that's the huge craze right now is talking about MTHFR, MTHFR,
Yep.
MTHFR. Well, that is certainly important, but there's more than just MTHFR, and there's more that goes along with it. That is, quite frankly, nutrigenomics, your genetic impact on your nutrition and how your body processes it.
Yeah. Yeah. Megan, for clients who've tried everything, what shifts emotionally when they finally see their own data compared to maybe trial and error?
Well, the biggest shift that I see, honestly, is relief. So I work with so many different women, and a lot of times they're like, do I just lack discipline? Because I feel like I've tried everything: keto, fasting, Orange Theory, cutting calories. And then sometimes, like, they think that it works because it works for a little bit and then it stops. But like when they see their data, they finally realize like it's not a willpower issue. It was
Right.
just a mismatch. And so when it clicks, you could just see like, whew, like they stop blaming themselves and it makes sense. And to be honest with you, that's like a really big emotional shift, and that changes everything because now they're not like fighting with their body, they're like partnering with it.
Right.
One
Yeah.
of the so let me chime in on that because that's not perception. That's not just, voodoo. It's literally, again, so what she's talking about is somewhat exercise adherence, right? So if I feel like this isn't working for me, I'm going to stop doing it. Exercise adherence, comparatively, standard versus a personalized exercise plan, has a 50% versus 80%. That's a 63% increase by doing an exercise program that's designed for you to get results. Though that's actually another stat. So I know I'm the data guy, but I geek out over it because it actually speaks volumes. It's not my opinion. We can argue, we can, get passionate, but when I can show you scientific studies that back this up, that's what the client needs to hear. When they hear that, they do say, gosh, I thought it was me. No, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Why do you think that clarity more often works better than just pure motivation?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I've got a great example of this. Like um, I have, I have two females pulled up. One's my wife, one's a client of mine. And, they ran their DNA tests.
Hmm.
And, my wife, Julie, she had a normal utilization of fat. So when we're talking about, macros, proteins, fats, and carbs, it is a great thing to understand how your body utilizes them, especially from an energy source. Where the other gal has a below average utilization of fat. Well, this gal was doing a carnivore diet, right? And again, agree, indifferent, whatever with carnivore, it doesn't matter your opinion of it. What matters is, does your body line up with it? Hers does not line up with it. And she has had struggles for a long time. And so she would jump to all the different diets. And, it's like posing this question in today's world with a, mid 30s female, telling them to eat more carbohydrates to lose weight. It's like you've lost your mind most of the time because carbs have been considered demonized, right? Like carbs are making people fat, and that's just not true. Excess calories are doing it. So she's doing a bunch of these high fat, right? Going back and forth, keto, carnivore, paleo, keto, carnivore, right? Going back and forth, just thinking this time it's going to work. Well, again,
Roulette dieting.
right. Yes, exactly. Because that's what happened, because they see some Instagram follower. This is, and again, it's like, just listen to your genetics. Well, what this gal would do is she'd be going 3 weeks. Well, the premise of that is to get into a form of ketosis, which typically takes about 6 to 8 days, where your body would, burn itself out of glucose. And then this emergency trigger would jump. And then all of a sudden your body would start burning stored body fat. And then you would be in ketosis. And that's the brief example of why that works. But this trigger was not going to be switched for her. It would take her 3 weeks, and all of a sudden she'd have all the brain fog and the keto flu and all the things that people would talk about. And she reaches out to me, Joe, I'm struggling. Great, let's do a DNA test. I run a DNA test. It shows her, yeah, not only should you never do carnivore or keto, but now there's belief because she can read her genetics. It was a lot easier for me to start saying, hey, let's add some sweet potatoes into your diet. God forbid, add some vegetables, right? And it was such an easy transition. And then a lot of her frustrations were gone instantly because she actually just embraced the data that was just given to her by her body.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if you even realize though, but some people are like skeptical because they've tried everything. So then you're telling them like, yeah, no, you should try carbs. And they're like, yeah, but, and then this maybe worked a little bit. And so it's kind of one of those,
Yep.
like now it's in print.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And the same gal. So again, I'm looking at my wife and her side by side. This gal was the cardio, the in-home, instant stream cardio. And her body had a below average response to fat loss from cardio. And my wife actually had enhanced, right? So like my wife's genetics, apparently I don't know, superhuman or something.
She won the lottery.
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, it's actually, she's very, very lucky. But it means she does not have to do as much. And the other gal, she was doing all of this, which basically the way her body was responding was she's constantly in a state of depletion. So in her mind is, well, I just got to do more. And then her body would go further in the hole. And then in her mind, I just got to work harder. I just got to work harder. It's just me. I just got to have more willpower. And every single thing that this other gal was doing in worldly standards was right. You're waking up early. You're on your grind, right? The 8 days a week and, all the different, she just wants it. No, she was putting herself in a state of depletion. Her body was not able to recover. It actually showed that she should have been doing a lot more resistance training than the cardio that she was doing. So we were able to make these tweaks, and it was a lot easier to do it because I could prove, again, it wasn't me just saying, well, here's what, I think you should be doing. And no, this is what your genetics said. This is the roadmap. Start doing this, follow this plan, and then let's look at the results. And, and then the results just started coming a lot more effective for her.
Right. Yeah. What impact do you think this testing and just the biocode method as a whole has on longevity and, lasting results?
Well, the longevity of this test, I mean, it's a roadmap. So it's like the information
Right.
to what they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you follow what your DNA says and you have someone who, like, yeah, it might be like they might see all the circles and they might have all this, but then you have a coach and the coach like is putting in the perfect program for you to do, you're going to see success because you're going to stick with it. The coach is there to help hold you accountable, can kind of tweak things along the way. But like everybody, you only hire someone or you only like your pain point is at a certain level for you to even want to get the test because you've tried everything and it's failed. So now you're going to invest a very minimal amount of money. This test is only $300. Mm-hmm. So that's like, a couple dinners out. And you're going to get a roadmap that is tailored for you. So why would it not be longevity of it when you apply everything that you learn about yourself? You feel good. So not only are you guys getting results, you're getting energy, you're getting clarity, you're removing brain fog, and then people are going to see you and be like, "What are you doing?" And then, like that's how I feel like with our mission of like helping 1 million people, it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
Did I
well,
that?
Absolutely. That is spot on. So you can even take that and say, okay, let's look at supplements. Your average person takes a multivitamin and it's, X brand, ABC brand of multivitamin. Well, all of a sudden you can run a DNA test. For instance, again, these two people side by side, talking about folate. And, we talk about the MTHFR. Well, one person has a normal ability to utilize, folate. The other one has an inability or a less, right, a less favorable. There are different versions of folate. And if you take the wrong one, it actually disrupts neurotransmitters. That is a very, very bad thing. Jim was talking about B12. Like all of the B vitamins are so crucial to our entire life. Like we just kind of, sprinkle over them because, but yeah, B vitamins are crucial to our entire long-term longevity health. Well, there are, I mean, again, not to dive into the weeds, but there's 4 different types of B12. Congratulations. If you take the wrong one, you have insomnia. And if we have, and all of a sudden they're thinking that's leading to caffeine. Matter of fact, this DNA test lines up these 2 women side by side. They have a completely different caffeine tolerance, and if we can see the data on, again, just B12, the right forms. Again, if we're losing out on sleep, I'm telling you, longevity is going to be affected. I mean, sleep is crucial.
Right.
Absolutely crucial to our longevity for recovery and, hormone balance and all of the quality of life things that we look at. Again, a very simple yet complex thing of B vitamins. Knowing and understanding that, yeah, ABC company, just because they ran some advertisements and they claimed whatever, again, it absolutely means nothing to an individual unless they know what their genetics say, how they're able to, and that's just 2 different ones. That's B9 and B12, let alone all the other ones and all the different forms and all the, it's like every little vitamin, nutrient, mineral, amino acid can be linked up to a genetic predisposition on how your body handles all of this. And for someone to think, oh yeah, this ABC bottle is going to be perfect for me. It's just, I mean, there's no possible way I can ever accept that ever again in my life. There's just no possible way.
So I'm going to rock your world. The statistics. So think about one of the things that is critical is managing inflammation. So one of the things that we haven't talked about is being able to use your DNA to monitor and manage your recovery as well as your exercise, right? So we're talking a lot about the right exercise plan, whether it's cardio, whether it's, whatever, strength training. We're talking about nutrition. But one of the things that doesn't really come up very often is how much recovery does your body need? And that we can tell by the DNA test, at least what your predisposition is. But we can also see your response to inflammation. Inflammation is the beginning of so many diseases. And there's a 2 to 1. So 30% versus 60% effectiveness or improvement when utilizing a genetic-based protocol. So you get a 2 times effect. Now, here's where I'm going to rock your world. From longevity standpoint and nutrition going forward, I've done some research that they are in the early stages of developing 3D printed personalized supplement pods for the exact dosage based on real time or very critical timed blood work. So you'll have a deal, take your blood work, plug it in, and you'll be able to print at home what you need for that day. Think about that.
Interesting.
Where do you think the biocode method, DNA testing, where do you think that fits in from a preventative health standpoint versus a reactive healthcare?
Oh, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if only 1 in 9 people can maintain a weight loss program for more than a year, 1 in 9, then if we can share this type of approach, I think you're going to see doctors it's going to be a standardized thing. Shortly after you're born, they're going to run your DNA and put it on file so that every time you go to the doctor's office, they're going to look at it and say, okay, here's the symptoms they're presenting with. Here's their DNA, and they can then therefore make a much more accurate and appropriate A, diagnosis, and B, treatment plan. So I think genetics, we're just at the very beginning. What we're talking about is genetics and the use of it in wellness, primarily in weight loss and fitness related, but it is going to take over and be a mainstream thing for every healthcare practitioner, or at least it should be. Okay. I think that's the direction we're going. I think we're getting some good information, some good changes in regards to nutrition. But I think the more we can understand that not everybody needs enriched bread, right? We need less of that and we need more personalized. So it's going to be absolutely critical going forward. I think you can, I mean, I can go on.
Joe,
Well,
did you?
I'm curious, I mean, I say this all the time. I'm not a trainer. I'm not a fitness instructor. I'm not a strength coach. I have not. So I want to know what Joe and Megan are actually seeing, hearing, and what their interpretation is on now. Joe, you've been with X Factor, gosh, is it almost 6 months or longer, right?
Yeah, longer than that now. Uh,
So what's the impact on your clients and on your business? And then Megan, a little bit shorter tenure, but I'd like to hear your input as well, because she's got some clients that have been doing our custom vitamin. So Joe, what are you seeing? What are you hearing?
one of the biggest things I've seen is the aha moments looking almost like hindsight. When we run these tests and now we're okay, this is what works for you, this is what doesn't, and then they go back instantly and they're like, oh, that's why when I tried that, it
Mhm.
failed. That's why, they're looking in hindsight a lot of times. And that's great because now we can identify problems that they did and now what to avoid. But where the future goes is we don't want to look at mistakes in hindsight, right? We always know hindsight, right? I mean, hindsight is literally 2020. We can always look back and say, okay, that didn't work. But now it's okay. How do we go avoid all these problems now by running these tests ahead of time? Because we always have these chronic dieters. We all have clients that have been trying this for 25 years and they can't stick to anything and nothing works. And again, they've literally tried everything out there, and no, they haven't tried everything. This is kind of the end all when we say let's just try to listen to your genetics. But that is what I've noticed the most is those aha moments of, okay, yes, man, I know why this didn't work, I know where the mistake hit, that makes sense to me now. It's so much easier for them to make those choices moving forward because now, again, they do have that data right in front of them.
You
Megan?
for me, okay, if you honestly like think about this, someone hires a personal trainer or they hire a coach because they've hit a point where they can't get the results that they want on their own. As a coach, like you could think you're writing it's coaching is trial and error, and that takes time. So like you might do something and it might works, but here's the thing, even if I prescribe it, does it really mean that the person is like doing it how they should be doing it? No, that doesn't necessarily. There's so many times that they're like, yeah, 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 but then they like went out for the weekend or they did something, like whatever it is with that. But when you have clear data that they're actually seeing and you've done all the trial and error stuff, they are going to like stick with the plan so much, but it takes the guesswork out of it. And that's what I just want to like preach to people. You can print your roadmap so much quicker and get them to the reason why they hired you. And
Right.
not only there's different testing that we've done down the line, but like so many of my clients, they have seen results, but even though it's not all about results, sometimes it's just like lacking energy and how they feel. And I know we're going to touch on this on other podcasts, but like the customized vitamins,
Yeah.
like getting to like the food sensitivities, like giving people like resources and allow them to see, dude, there's nothing better than having energy like you did when you were a little kid and wanting to do like I don't know. For me, it's been a game changer for how I've coached, but it's made my clients happy. And
Yeah.
that makes me happy.
Yeah. So who should be testing? And who benefits the most from starting with testing?
Clearly everybody. Because I mean, that is a wonder. People are like, well, should I, shouldn't I? It's like, I mean,
Skeptical.
obviously, I mean, if it were free, everybody would do it. I mean, I don't know about everybody, but most people would do it if it were free. Um, but it's just one of those things like, are you really truly tired of the next thing? It's that people think like one day I'm going to find the way. And it's like, again, the way is right in front of you. It is literally right under your nose. Just run a test and it will show the best way for people to run their day-to-day lives. So yeah, I would obviously say everybody should do it. Unless they truly just don't care. There's whatever, right? No big deal. But again, if people are listening to a podcast, if people are talking about health, again, obviously, listeners care. Like, yes, if you are debating on it, there's literally nothing to debate. It's knowing versus get. It is no different than we're in central Iowa. I mean, if I wanted to find a restaurant in LA, I mean, I'm sure I could get there if I just started heading, at least head west, right? I mean, if I was going east, I'm not going to get there. But I mean, I'm sure I could find it. Now, if I was in a time crunch, if I wanted less frustration, I would let me just plug it into GPS, and it'll give me the exact step-by-step estimation of time. Now again, if I go off the path to go look at whatever the mountains on the way to the Rockies or something, that's on me, right? I mean, there's no reason why somebody can't go off their plan here and there to kind of live a little bit. But if I want to get there the most effective route possible, yeah, I mean, I'm going to plug it into GPS and follow it to the best of my possible manner, I guess, to get there on time, less frustration, especially if I was on a time crunch, right? Now, if it was just a stroll, yeah, I could get there. But I think people don't want to take a stroll through their life. That's, there are things that do need to be kind of precision on this, especially so it kind of poses that question of, okay, how healthy do you want to be? If they can answer that, well then without a shadow of a doubt, then yes, we need to have these tests, because how healthy do you truly want to be?
Yeah. So what's the next logical step for someone that's listening?
Reach out to us. Visit xfactorlabs.com.
Yeah. Call me, not
Hyphen.
Megan.
Yep.
Clearly.
Got you.
Yeah. No, in the link below,
It
we'll have.
would actually be fun for Joe and I. We should have a challenge sometime. And you've always said, what trainer would you go with? What? Let's see who can prescribe the best program. Game's on. We're competitive.
Yeah,
We
no,
want to be
but
the best.
yeah, yeah. No, in the comments or in the description below, we'll have a link to a free Biocode DNA sample report. If anybody listening is interested in kind of seeing what exactly they'll be able to see on their test, that sample report will show you exactly what we're testing for and how a coach can use that to help them. So,
I think that brings up a final point, though, Parks, in thinking about X Factor Labs and our Biocode DNA test. The difference is we've taken the time to combine the genetic profiles to help you with your nutrition and weight loss, but we've also taken and added the performance traits. And the reason we did that is because after reviewing the different traits and the different reports available, what we found, or what we think, is that the performance characteristics also benefit the person who's looking for weight loss, and the nutrition components that benefit primarily the weight loss candidates also benefit the nutrition for the performance candidates. So our DNA test is pretty unique in that regard. The other thing that I would add is just doing a DNA test does nothing. Okay? Knowledge is not power. The use and application of knowledge means everything. And that's where I like the X Factor approach. Is Our coaches are trained to help you interpret and then apply that information to actionable things. So there's one thing to do a DNA test. There's another to actually use the DNA test to benefit your health.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, for anybody that is listening is interested in doing their DNA or interested in the biocode method, fill out that form, download that sample report, and we'll get in touch with you. Megan, did you have something to finish us
I
off with?
do actually want to add something. Yeah, I actually do want to, because we want more coaches, so we do want people to learn more of the biocode method. And I just really do want to hit on this because I believe this is the future of coaching. And with this like information and with the testing, I think if you get in it early, you could be like a leader in the next era of health. Like this is not trends anymore. Like this is true science. Most people who are personal trainers and coaches, they love science. So get ahead of the game and like join us, like be a part of this movement.
Mhm.
Well, and then we can even take that a step further too, because I've obviously talked with clients, or I mean, even just people in general who reach out who, are intrigued by testing because it does make sense, but they're also working with other coaches. So I do want to talk to coaches and people who have other coaches. If your coach that you're working with is reluctant to look at biology, you really got to start questioning what you're doing here. And yes, it's going to step on some toes, and I don't care. But that's also them just saying, I don't understand, so therefore I'm not going to learn about it. And because, I mean, how many times do we talk to people that just go do cookie cutter things all day long? Even listeners right now, I'm sure, you've joined some program where 20 people are all doing the same workout every week. And it's like, again, your logic says that doesn't make sense. I mean, it just doesn't. There's no way 20 people can do the same. I mean, that it's just going to be the same for every single person. And I know, that, it can't be the same for every single person out there. So from a coaching standpoint, it's like if you're not looking at the future and where cookie cutter programs are going right now and why people are so frustrated, it's like, no, this is a wake up call to sit and say, where is the future of my coaching going to be at? And I've said this in the past too. It's like, imagine being a chiropractor or a doctor prior to x-rays. I'm sure when x-rays came out, and I don't know when they came out, but I'm sure there were doctors and chiropractors that were like, yeah, you don't need one of those. No, it was probably because they just couldn't afford to buy one, so they had to say, no, those are hokey. You don't need one of those. And then now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, there's no way you could do it without an x-ray. It's like, no, your arm is broken right here. Look, the x-ray shows it is broken. No, I think it's just sprained, anytime there's any form of like opposition to that, it's just because, again, it's more just an ignorance of saying, I just don't know. That's above my head. But yet it's also attacking their coaching business too. So you have to kind of look at that as well too. So, don't be afraid, don't be afraid to even question if you are working with somebody, what they think of that. And, and just sit back and listen to what they say. Because if somebody truly comes out and says, I don't think you really need to know how your body metabolizes, fat versus carbs and protein. No, I think you really need to know that. And if somebody doesn't think that's important, it just means they don't understand, and they're not willing to understand that. So therefore it's time to think about changing.
Well, Joe, you did a post not too long ago, a kind of a hypothetical challenge
Yes.
to, other coaches and
I know where you're going. Yep.
yeah, whether they'd take the bet, is all right. Would you put your money where your mouth is and offer up a fitness plan for the same client with no data, just their experience, versus you having all the data and all the testing done? It's to me, that's a no-brainer.
Yep.
But again, I think it is ignorance because they don't understand the application. And that's where, it's hard to argue with statistics from reputable sources of, we're talking about the Journal of American Medicine. We're talking about Nutrients Journal, where, I mean, so I think it's the lack of understanding. But when you compare those, scenarios of, all right, you prescribe a program with just your experience. I'll prescribe a program knowing their nutrition, their exercise predispositions, and all the data that we find. That's a no-brainer. And I think as people in general understand it, as well as coaches, I do think this is the future of the business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, awesome. Well, for anybody listening, again, link in the description is a free Biocode DNA report. Check it out, see what it's all about, and yeah, let's unlock your X factor and get you lasting results.